Ladies and gentlemen, when the NHL first started, that current disgrace and debacle, the Toronto Maple Leafs, who find a way, well, at least for the last 17 years, to not win or not make the playoffs, or not make the past the first round. Years ago, ladies and gentlemen, the 30s, 40s, 50s, in the 60s, they were championship teams. They had at least 4 different dynasties they could celebrate. But today we're not going to be talking about the modern Maple Leafs. We're talking about the real Toronto Maple Leafs, or where they came from. Now, today we're going to be talking about the precursor to the Maple Leafs, the Toronto St. Patricks. Now, the Toronto St. Patricks, or called the St. Pats, played the NHL starting in 1919. Now, the Toronto NHL franchise had previously been held by the Arena Company, and the team was called the Arenas, who had won the 1917-18 Stanley Cup. Now, despite winning the title, the team eventually became bankrupt and pulled out of the league after 2 seasons. The rights to the Toronto franchise were purchased by a group of investors with links to an amateur club called the St. Patricks. The new owners renamed the NHL franchise after the amateur club, and as the St. Patricks, the team won the 1922 Stanley Cup. Now, J.P. Bickle invested in the St. Patricks in 24 as a favor to former Arenas representative Charlie Query. In 27, Charlie Query and other investors wanted out. J.P. Bickle made arrangements for other Toronto investors and initially hired Mike Rodden, the referee and sports writer, to run the hockey operations, which didn't work out. He then hired the great Connie Smythe as the managing partner, and the team was renamed to the Toronto Maple Leafs before the 26-27 seasons. Now, the St. Pat's organization, mostly fraternal, obviously Irish background, had operated amateur hockey clubs in the Metro Toronto area since the first decade of the 1900s, including the senior amateur St. Pat's team in the OHA. Now, the Toronto franchise of the NHL had been operated by the Arena Company, operators of Arena Gardens in Toronto. Now, again, they got a temporary franchise. They won the Cup and then left after only winning 5 games in 1919 and suspending operations. Now, the at least the players from the Toronto Blue Shirts from then owner Eddie Livingston, while litigation was underway between Livingston and the NHL. Basically, they wanted Livingston out. They folded the NHA and made the NHL. Now, Livingston eventually won a $20,000 judgment in the Arena Company, which declared bankruptcy to avoid paying the bill. Before the 1920 season, General Manager Charlie Query learned that the Arena Company wanted to sell. As an interim measure, he changed the team name to the Tecumsehs on December 7, 1919, after the great First Nation military strategist. Now, the following day, Query reached agreement with the owners of the amateur St. Patrick's Club to purchase the franchise, with Frank Hefferman as manager. On December 13, 1919, the NHL transferred the Toronto franchise to the Query St. Patrick's Group for $5,000. The incorporation date of the club was December 22, 1919, and listed Fred Hambley, Percy Hambley, Paul Cesare, and Query with 99 shares each, and Richard Greer with 4. The move was possible because the Arena Hockey Club was a self-contained corporation and was therefore beyond the legal reach of Livingston. Now, although Query returned, player turnover was nearly 100%, partly because the Quebec Bulldogs NHL franchise was activating for this season, and the players that had been loaned to the Arenas and NHL teams had been returned to Quebec. They had folded from the NHA, went into hiatus, and came back. Now, additionally, with the poor performance of the previous season and a turnover in franchise management, the franchise essentially started over. The club improved the second and third place finishes in the halves of the schedule. Now, in 1921, the club placed second and first in the scheduled halves, enough to make the playoffs. Unfortunately, the Super Six of Ottawa would dominate the club 7-0 in a 2-game total goals playoff. The experience of losing against such a vaunted team would be helpful in the following season, however, as a title run was right around the corner. Now, in the 22 campaign, the St. Pats made their first and, unfortunately, only appearance in the Stanley Cup. After placing second in the league standings, the club upset first-place Ottawa to win the NHL title and face Vancouver in the final. A fifth and deciding Game 5 was necessary in the series to determine who would win the Cup. After Vancouver won Game 1 4-3, Babe Dye scored 450 in overtime of Game 2 to give Toronto a 2-0 win. Then, in Game 3, goaltender Hugh Lehman led the Millionaires to a 3-0 shutout win. However, the St. Patrick's tied the series in Game 4 6-0 as John Ross Roach became the first rookie goalie to record a Stanley Cup shutout. Now, Game 5 belonged to Toronto as Dye scored 4 goals in a 5-1 victory to clinch the Cup. For the series, Dye scored 9 of St. Pat's 16 goals, while Roach posted a stellar 1.80 average. In the following 2 seasons, unfortunately, the St. Pat's would miss the playoffs with third-place finishes. In 1925, the club would play second in the playoff against the Habs, while Hamilton had played first. The club was on strike, making the St. Pat's Canadian semifinal the de facto final. The Canadians would win the playoff to advance to the Stanley Cup title series. In 26, the club struggled to a 6th place, finishing behind the expansion Pittsburgh and New York clubs. Top scorer Babe Dye struggled, and the club finished 6th out of 7 teams. Now, the Canadians, who had lost their top goalie Georges Vezina and placed last, eventually they rebounded, but not in this season. In 26-27, the St. Pat's finished 6th and last in the new Canadian division. Dye was sold to the new Chicago Blackhawks team for cash. Now, the club was in trouble in 1927, both on the ice and legally. Query lost a long-standing lawsuit to Livingston and decided to put up the St. Pat's for sale. There was a $200,000 bid from a group in Philadelphia. However, at J.P. Bickle's direction, the Toronto Varsity Grads coach Conn Smythe headed an ownership group and made a $160,000 offer for the franchise. With the support of St. Pat's shareholder J.P. Bickle, Query rejected the Philadelphia bid, Smythe arguing that civic pride was more important than money. Now, after taking control on February 14, 27, Smythe immediately renamed the team the Toronto Maple Leafs, after the national symbol of Canada. He attributed his choice to a maple leaf on the logo of his experiences as a Canadian Army officer and prisoner of war during World War I. Viewing the maple leaf as a badge of courage, which of course we agree with 100%, and a reminder of home, Smythe decided to give the same name to his hockey team, in honor of the many Canadian soldiers who wore it. However, the team was not the first to use the name, as a Toronto minor league baseball team had used the name Maple Leafs since 1895. And Babe Ruth, of course, had a home run in Toronto as well. Now, initial reports were that the team's colors were to be red and white, but the Leafs wore white sweaters with a green maple leaf for the first game on February 17, 27. On September 27, 1927, it was announced that the Leafs would have changed their color scheme to blue and white. I don't think Toronto wearing red and white would do well against Ottawa or Montreal. Too confusing. Now, although Smythe later stated he chose blue because it represents the Canadian skies and white represents snow, these colors were also used on his gravel and sand business trucks. The color blue was also a color historically associated with the city of Toronto. The use of blue at top-level based sports clubs began with the Argonaut Rowing Club in the 19th century, later adopted by their football team, the Toronto Argos, in 1873. So a recap of their seasons. Again, 1920 did not qualify the playoffs, 12-12-0. 2021, 15-9, lost in the NHL Finals to the Senators. 22, 13-10-1, second in the NHL, and won the Stanley Cup 3-2 over the Millionaires. 23 did not qualify, same with 24. Their career top season, 1925, 19-11-0, second in the NHL, but lost in the NHL Finals in the Habs, and of course did not qualify for 26 and 27. So of their 8 years existence, not unlike the Toronto Maple Leafs later on, they failed to make the playoffs in 5 of their 8 seasons. Of course, prominent players were the great Harry Cameron and Babe Dye. Coaches included Frank Heffernan, Harry Sproul, Frank Carroll, George O'Donoghue, Charlie Query, Eddie Powers, and the great Mike Rodden. So if you're looking for more information, there's a very interesting book or article that came out written by Adam Proto, talking about the deep ties between the Maple Leafs and the Canadian Armed Forces. Very interesting read, ladies and gentlemen. And again, 1921 winner was Ottawa, and he won in 23. So again, they stopped that mini dynasty that was growing. Ottawa had a really, really solid team in the early 1920s. So for the St. Pats to beat them, and they had to be pretty good. So ladies and gentlemen, that's a story about the original Toronto Maple Leafs, known as the St. Pats. If you like what we're doing here with a podcast channel, give us a like, comment, subscribe. And if you have any family members that has any Toronto St. Pats memorabilia, you're very, very fortunate because not too much still exists. The original letters and your, their playbills, schedules, very rare. So tremendous. And of course, Toronto Maple Leafs in the modern era had brought back the St. Pat's jerseys. Too bad the St. Pat's luck doesn't rub off of Toronto for their playoff runs, because if you saw them lose 3 straight to Montreal last week, maybe it's time for a name change. I don't know, the Toronto Arena St. Pat's or something. Bring back some of that old glory, because how this current team plays compared to the success, again, of the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s is a disgrace. And there's no other way to say it. It's not the fans' fault. I'm not blaming the fans. It's management and the players. You play for the playoffs. You don't play, you just don't play a game to play it. You play to win. Herman Edwards said that. He wasn't talking about the Habs and the Leafs, but he was talking about something. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, thanks for listening. Have a good day. Bye.